So I just got done playing Black Myth Wukong. I completely finished it last night. Actually, this morning at like 8 a.m. I went to bed, stupid o'clock. I've actually been going to bed pretty much around the same time every day this week because I've become so addicted to this game. This game has completely blew my head off just how good this game was, how good the experience was, the level of detail and effort that the developers have put into this game, the love and the care for the character and the world of Wukong, all the lore. You can see it in every shot. It's just so well designed, so well made, so much effort, and I can't wait to tell you about my experience. So let's get into it. So when we first seen the trailers, like 2018, these trailers really took the whole gaming world by surprise. It really stood out. Everyone was like, oh my God, this looks amazing, but is it actually a real game? I remember thinking, this looks incredible, but is it like just more of a tech demo, or is it just not even a real thing? Like, what is this? And more trailers came out over time to the point where real big hype and excitement got brought around this game, and I just never expected it to come out. Then suddenly we get it. The end of 20th of August it dropped. I got it on day one, and this game has met and beaten my expectations for what I had hoped to get from this game. The whole way through this game was epic, and that's a word I'm probably going to use all the way through this review because that is the best word to describe what the experience is like playing Black Myth Wukong. It is epic. So for those of you that are wanting to sort of know what the game is like, I would say this game is very similar to God of War, more so than it is Elden Ring or any of the Souls games. A lot of people were trying to figure out whether it was more of a Souls game than it was anything else. It's not really a Souls game at all. There is some mechanics that are taken from the Souls-like games, like Elden Ring and Demon Souls or whatever. Like, for example, the resting points. So in this game, you have shrines, which are the same thing as a grace or a bonfire, like in the Souls games. You go to the resting point, the shrine, you can rest, it replenishes all your flasks, you get all your health back, all your mana and stamina and everything else. It also does bring back all the enemies, just like in the Souls games. Not every single enemy, like the bosses, the main bosses, and the bigger enemy types that you beat along the way. There are certain ones that drop these things called spirits that you can collect, and you can transform. You can use that spirit and transform into whatever that boss was. It's amazing. We'll go into that, but it'll bring back all the enemies, and you can run around the whole map again, defeating all the enemies, getting your XP, your wills. So in this game, instead of it being runes or souls, it's called wills. You don't lose these when you die, which I thought was great. I'm grateful that you don't lose them when you die. So, you can keep leveling up and going through, finding all these wills, spending it on different things, buying and upgrading and crafting, buying different potions, selling different items that you come across around the world. And then you can also use your, when you level up your XP, you get given sparks. Sparks are basically skill points that you can put into your enormous skill tree. Like, it is crazy how many things you have on this skill tree. It just kept getting bigger and bigger. I was like, oh my God, there's so much to do. I don't even think I've covered even half of it, and I've put 50 hours into this game. I'm level like 90 or something, and yeah, there's still so many to go through. The amazing thing about the skill tree is, like in most games, you put your skill point in a certain tree and you're locked into that. Whereas this game, you're not locked into anything. You can take out that skill point at any point and put it into another skill tree that you want. You can change your build up at any point, and I've really appreciated that because this game is very difficult. Like, it isn't easy. And some boss fights, you really start to have to think, hang on, how do I get through this? I need to change everything around a little bit, and the game allows you to do that, and I thought that that was really a good thing, and I'm grateful for that, because it would have drove me mad if I locked myself into a certain stance or ability that I wasn't liking, because that did happen a few times, and it would be frustrating. So that's a really good thing. Now, the actual combat itself is amazing. Like, it is so good. It is so enjoyable. I never got bored once throughout this game. I would have liked a few more variations of the combos you can do. There is still quite a lot, but like I liked using the staff stance, the pillar stance it's called, so you can climb up on top of your staff. You can even extend it so you can go high in the sky. You can slam it down. You can do all these spins on it. It is really cool. And I use that all the way through the game. That was my preferred choice. But you can have, there's another 2 or 3 different stances you can have. It's really varied, and there's a lot of choice in that. It never got boring once. I would have liked to, like I said, have a few more different combos where you can do different finishing moves. There isn't like a finishing move in this game like in God of War where you can rip the bodies apart and do all these crazy fun like assassinations finishes. There isn't that here, but it doesn't matter. The gameplay and the combat is so much fun, and I would say this is probably one of my most favorite games for combat and fighting as a whole. It really is that much fun. Talking about difficulty, this game has 90 boss fights, and they are constant. It's not like every single enemy you encounter is a boss fight, but like it's close to that. There is so many boss fights, it's ridiculous. I think there's like 15 boss fights in chapter 2. Then there's probably the same or more, or maybe a little bit less actually in chapter 1. But like all the way through each chapters, there is just endless boss fights, and it is so good because every single boss is completely unique and completely different to the last. The design, the look of them, their fighting styles, their mechanics, just everything, the martial arts, all the animations are so well done and so well made, and every single boss is totally different. It blew me away. I couldn't believe that I was having this many encounters with constant boss fights and everyone being so unique and epic and so well designed. It's so good. It's so good what they've done here. Game Science, the developers who created this game, they've absolutely smashed all of this. And just going back to the difficulty, I found this game very hard. I did get better, obviously, as you play through the game, as you would, but then the bosses do get a lot harder, but you also get harder. You get better staffs, you get, you're leveling up, you get better armor. So even though the bosses get fucking well harder at one point, but you're also getting harder, you're also getting better at the game. You can't parry really. You can parry in this game, but it's a different type of parry. It's not like you can just spam triangle or whatever it would be, or circle, and you parry with a shield. It's not like that, like God of War. In this game, you can get a spell called Rock Solid, which makes you turn into a rock solid form of yourself, and you have to use that and put it on one of your spells. You have to use it perfectly in time for when the enemy hits you, and it'll create this big explosion spark thing. It'll stun the enemy, and then you can go back in and fight. But that is on a cooldown, so you can't constantly use that. Other than that, the main thing about this game is dodging, and it feels great to dodge. If you get a perfect dodge, it feels great. You leave like a ghost form of yourself, and it kind of does a slow motion thing when you dodge perfect. It feels great, and getting them perfect dodges really help, especially when you start putting on points that give you focus points when you dodge. Now, your focus point is these little yellow circles in the bottom right corner of your screen on your HUD. You can level them up to 4 eventually. Start off with 2, then you can get 3, then you can get 4 if you want to have that. These focus points really help in fights, so you want to build up these focus points, because then you hold triangle to build up the power in your staff, and then you can use your staff and use a focus point, which is way more powerful, and you get critical hits from it, and it feels great. Getting them focus points and using them perfect just feels amazing, and it feels awful when you completely fuck it up and waste them. But yeah, that's kind of like how that works. Now, the world of this game, the world design is amazing. It's made in Unreal Engine 5. The lighting, the volumetric fog, all the details, the ray tracing, just the reflections, just everything, the foliage, the world, the water, just all the graphics, the whole graphics along the whole game is just amazing. Some of the best graphics I've seen, and the fact that you have this much going on, and the game runs pretty much, it doesn't run perfect, and this is one of the issues with the game on PS5 anyway. The game runs great 90% of the time, and then 10% of the time the frame rate really does drop, especially in chapter 3. It was a bit frustrating sometimes, because even like some little glitches and stutters would happen. It was frustrating, not enough to make me not enjoy it, and it didn't take my gaming experience away, but it is something that definitely hinders the game. I hope that they bring out a patch, and it is something I can imagine some people would get really frustrated with. I don't think I had any crashes, but it was mainly just, maybe I had 2 crashes and I experienced 2 bugs, but that was it. and I played 50 hours, so it run pretty seamlessly all the way through, apart from some moments here and there. Now, the story of this game is something that I loved it. I absolutely loved it, but it was quite difficult to understand really what the story was for a lot of the time. It felt like basically every chapter just has its own story, and at the end of the chapter you fight this huge chapter ending boss, which are always huge and epic, and it's amazing. And then at the end of the chapter you get given this really cool anime styled short film, and it sort of covers the chapter that you've just played. Sometimes some of it I'm kind of like, that I love that, but what was that about? So yeah, the animations that you get are really well done, really well made. I loved them. I thought it was a really nice touch to the game, totally unexpected, and when I seen it I loved it. And then at the end of the end of the animation, you get given this like big mural, this art piece mural, and they're so amazing. Like, they're so well drawn and designed, they're amazing to look at. It'll give you different lore of like characters and some of the enemies that you've come across, and the world and the myth of Wukong, and I really did enjoy them. But the story as a whole, I kind of wish it felt a little bit, because the game feels like God of War, and in God of War you have a really deep emotional storyline that you feel connected to. You have characters that you feel connected to. Weirdly enough, I did feel connected to my character, but in Wukong, but he doesn't speak, he doesn't say anything. So whereas God of War, you have Kratos and you really feel connected to him. He speaks a lot. There's a lot of dialogue to Atreus. There's a lot of things that happen that are spoken about in between moments, and like it feels like you have a really like understanding linear storyline with things like God of War. You know what the ultimate goal is in God of War 4. You have to take your wife's ashes to the top of the mountain. So you know what the point of the mission, the whole game is, but it feels like this sense of journey and adventure, and you know where you're going. Whereas this game kind of feels like I don't know what I'm actually doing apart from beating loads of bosses, and I kind of wish they did something. Well, I actually love it. I love it, but I would have liked some sort of like a bit more of a linear storyline that made me feel connected to what the story was, because it felt a little bit disjointed, like with having every chapter being totally different storyline with different characters. Eventually, the story kind of feels like it comes full circle and it starts to make a bit more sense, and you feel like, okay. But for the most part, it felt like, okay, yeah, each chapter's just its own thing. There is a few things in the game that I wish were different or included. For example, there is no map in this game, and you do get lost very easily, especially when you get to chapter 2. It opens up massively, and all the chapters start to get bigger and venture out, and it starts to feel a bit more like open world-ish. Not open world fully, but it feels a lot more open, a lot more stuff to explore and to find. Hidden secret areas, there's a lot of hidden secret areas. And if you don't have a map, which you don't in this game, it's very difficult to remember where you've been or where you wanted to go and you took a different route, and to find that place again. Or you might have seen something and gone, okay, I'll come back to that. I'm going to go check here first. I'll come back here. And then you've completely forgot because you just fought fucking 10 bosses before you could even think again where that thing was. So you do get lost a lot. It is a bit frustrating, but I liked it in the end. Also, the character NPCs, like the side quest missions that you get given in this game, I love the encounters. I love the characters. I thought they were really cool. They're all different animals. Like there's like a big warthog. There is like a horse guy. There's a few other things, and they're really cool and interesting characters. But they give you like little side missions, but it's kind of like Souls games where you don't really get given an objective. It kind of just is a bit of a story. They say something, and then you're left to go and find whatever it is that they want. It's quite hard to actually do it. I think I did 2 of them just by playing the game and not realizing, and then the rest of them I was like, by the end I was like, I want to know how to find that character again. So I'd look online and be like, oh right, God, how would you ever know that? Some of these things, and to find the secret boss fights and to be able to do certain things in the game to allow you to find certain areas that are secret. I have no idea how you would know how to do that unless you accidentally came across it. So there is that. I managed to complete all the secret endings and secret bosses. I did look online at some points and be like, where is that thing, that character that I came across? Then you do it, and yeah, you can figure it out if you look online and you get lost. But for the most part, you're basically lost in this game trying to just explore and remember everything. Another thing that kind of was a bit frustrating playing the game was some of the, when you're in the middle of a fight, because it's so hectic, you've got someone just going ape shit, beating the shit out of you non-stop, and you can't get a moment's break or pause, and you're like, I need to put on health, or I need to put on my medicine, or take these pills, these tablets, or whatever thing you've crafted for your, to help you out in a fight that gives you higher damage or damage reduction. You can craft all this stuff. To do that, you have to hold R2 and then press up on the D-pad to do the magic. Sorry, to add on your potions, not your potions, your medicines. To do that, you have to hold R2, press up or left or right on the D-pad, wherever you select them to be. And for me, for some reason, doing that barely worked. I'd have to press it all the time, and eventually you'd do it. But doing that in the middle of a really difficult fight is really annoying. Also, using your ability where you can turn it into another character, you have to press R2 and L2, and you can do your ability. That seemed to work 80% of the time, 20%, it just never worked. So there was a lot of times I would die because I'm trying to press this thing, and it doesn't work. That was frustrating. And the performance issues, that's pretty much it. There's not that much more at all. Like, everything else was just seamless for me. Now, let's get into the transformations. So there is so many transformations in this game. You have two different types. You have spirits that you can collect when you're playing through the game. You can kill them, they'll glow in blue, the enemies. You can take their spirit, and then you can transform into them for a brief moment and use whatever ability that character gives you. Everyone's totally different. I think I have 40 different characters that I can transform into. You can change all this at any point. You're not locked into any of it. There is also a separate transformation thing which you can select, and you can transform into these characters for a while, not just a brief moment. You can actually transform into them and play as them, run around and fight as these different beasts, and it is so cool. They're all very different. They all have their own fighting styles, their own magic abilities or spells or whatever, and it is so enjoyable being able to do that. And the amount of the amount of characters that you can transform into and the amount of abilities that you get is just amazing. And I couldn't believe how much of this you get. You don't just get 4 or 5. I've got about 50, and I don't even think I've collected them all. So yeah, this game's huge. Like I said before, there is secret areas in this game, and if you go and defeat all of the secret area ending bosses, there's 5 of them altogether, or 4 or 5, I can't remember exactly. If you do all of them, it does unlock an alternative ending for you, and I just did that last night, and I'll talk about that in a moment, because before I tell you about the alternative ending, don't worry, I won't spoil it, but the end of the actual game, the end of the game is so epic. I've just found out that Dragon Ball Z was actually inspired by Wukong, not the other way around. And I didn't know this because I didn't know much about Wukong at all until recently. And you can definitely see how Dragon Ball Z was inspired by it, because the end of this game definitely was Dragon Ball Z vibes, and I absolutely loved it. As a Dragon Ball Z fan, I was like, this is so sick. And then when you get to the end boss, that's definitely Dragon Ball Z vibe, and it was probably, I know this is a big statement, but I would say the end boss of this game is probably my most favorite boss I've ever fought in any game. It was that good. I loved it, like absolutely loved it, absolutely epic. It took me hours. It was so difficult. Some of the bosses in this game took me hours each one. I've spent maybe 3-4 hours multiple times on different bosses. Some of them have taken me an hour, some of them have taken me a minute. It's all different, but the end boss of this game took me a good 3 hours or something like that. It was so difficult, but so enjoyable, and the feeling of beating him was so rewarding. I loved it. But the alternative ending boss that you have to do before you go and fight the end boss of the normal ending again, you have to go to a certain area and fight a specific enemy, and fuck me, that was so challenging. It was so difficult. It took me again about 3 hours. And what happens in that fight, I thought the end boss in the main game was so epic that I was like, this is the fucking best thing I've ever seen in a game. I love this. Then you go to the alternative ending boss, the boss that you have to do before the end of the normal game. and that was on another level of being epic. It was even harder than the normal boss, and that was solid. It was harder than that, and it was so much more epic. What happens in that boss fight is, I've never seen that in a game, and to be able to play that and actually use that character and everything that goes on in that part of the game is just something I've never experienced before, and that is one of the best things I've experienced in a game as well. So 2 things in this game of being an end boss has been like the best boss fights I've ever had. It's that good. All the bosses in this game are some of the best fights I've ever seen or had or experienced in a game. I would probably say that these bosses are better than Elden Ring bosses. I know some people will massively agree and disagree, but for me personally, I think these boss fights are more enjoyable and better than what you get in Elden Ring, and I love Elden Ring. It's one of my favorite games, so it's a pretty big statement, but that's how much I love this game. But I could not recommend this more. If you're into combat games, if you like God of War, definitely get this game. If you like Souls games, definitely get this game. If you're not even into them games, 100% try this game out. It is amazing. It is very difficult. It'll take you quite a while to get, to learn it and to get good at it. But the feeling and the reward that you get for defeating these enemies and the bosses and just progressing and, upgrading your skill tree, your armor, your staffs, and just exploring this world and just the stories that you get given, how epic and cinematic it is. Very cinematic, this game. It's so enjoyable. You'll have a really good time if you stick with it. It might be too difficult for some people, but yeah, I think everyone should give this game a go. I couldn't recommend it enough. This has been one of my most favorite gaming experiences that I have remembered in recent times. It's definitely up there with one of my most favorite and memorable games that I've ever played, and it's definitely my game of the year. So for me, if I was to give this game a rating, there's only one rating I can give it. It's a 10 out of 10. Guys, I really enjoyed playing Black Myth Wukong. I'm really interested now in learning more about Wukong and the lore. The world is so rich and interesting, and I can't believe that this is what Chinese mythology is like. It's crazy, because I wish we had something like this in the UK. All we've got is fucking Henry VIII and Boris Johnson. So no wonder the Chinese are so passionate about this character. This character is absolutely OP. Like, he is solid. If I keep thinking playing this game, who would be the hardest? Who would be the most powerful, Kratos or Wukong? After playing this full game and seeing everything that Wukong's capable of, especially the alternative ending, what you get from that and what you have to do in that, I mean, Wukong could actually beat Kratos, but then again, I don't know. Kratos has killed every god, but I've never seen Kratos do shit like this. It is amazing. So that's it. That is my review. Please drop me a like if you enjoyed this. Let me know down in the comments, have you played Black Myth Wukong? Are you going to play it? What do you think to this game? And also, if you are Chinese and you are watching this video, let me know down in the comments what you think of the game. I'm really interested to know what Chinese culture and people think of this game, because this is such a passionate thing for Chinese people. They care so much about Wukong. And I would love to know what the Chinese people think of this game. Are you proud of this? Are you happy with how it turned out? I can only imagine how I would feel if someone made a game this good about my culture or something. It would feel, I mean, not for me in particular. I'm from the UK. We've pretty much got no culture. But for me, if I was to be from, China or whatever and get to play this, it would be like, whoa, this is amazing. So yeah, I'd love to know what you think and let me know down below. That's it, guys. Thanks for watching. I'll see you all on the next one.